On today's show, Evan Mobley going to shoot more three-pointers for the Cavs this season. I learned that and a few more things at the media availability of Koby Altman and Kenny Atkinson earlier today. We discuss it on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. Want to say thank you to making today's show and maybe the earlier show today your first listen every day. Maybe you're making this one your second listen, as this is a little bit of a bonus episode of Locked On Cavs coming at you after Koby Altman and Kenny Atkinson spoke earlier today at Cleveland Clinic Courts. But you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you check us out on YouTube as well. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, click that thumbs up button for me, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when bonus content like this show gets put up, you are alerted first thing. Of course, we are a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Fans can win big early this NFL season because with FanDuel, place your first $5 bet and you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, earlier today, Cleveland Clinic Courts in Independence, Ohio, Koby Altman, Cavs president of basketball operations, and new head coach Kenny Atkinson, they gave their preseason remarks. Normally, we see this happen on the team's media day, which will be Monday when we hear from the majority of the roster. But the Cavs are doing things a little bit differently this year. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that training camp is going to be a week spent in Florida. So I think they wanted to shorten up the day on Monday. So Kenny Atkinson, Koby Altman spoke today. There were a number of things that I took away. I was in attendance. I asked a couple questions at this press conference. The thing that I think is the most important thing to take away from today, Evan Mobley is going to be shooting more three-pointers this year. Evan Mobley is going to have a much bigger role offensively for the Cavs this year than he did last year. This was one of the things that I told you guys on yesterday's, or on earlier today's episode, I should say, that I was curious to get Kenny Atkinson's input on. I asked him this question, and he talked a lot about the things that he thinks Evan Mobley still can do offensively, that he maybe has not reached his ceiling in certain areas yet. He talked about playing with pace. He talked about the Cavs playing 5 out, which I think is interesting, considering Jarrett Allen obviously going to be the starting center on this team, but there will be a lot of time when only Evan Mobley's on the floor, not Jarrett Allen. And I would expect the Cavs to be in 5 out lineups when that is the case, to where Evan can be in sort of more of a playmaking role, where he can be the guy that is, and I believe Kenny called it like the trailing position coming down in transition, which is a playmaking role where he's got the basketball in his hands and he can try and get downhill and he can try and find shooters, whether it's on the wing, in the corner, find a cutter to the basket, those sorts of things. Kenny brought up all of those. He used an example of the team was scrimmaging the other day at the facility and he saw Evan take the ball, run down the floor with it, an open three-point shooter who ended up, I believe, making the three-pointer. Obviously, that's an assist for Evan. That's 3 points on the board for the Cavs, which is what you should care about. Those are the types of things that I think the Cavs have always believed Evan is capable of, but to hear it come from a new head coach and to see the new head coach should have a plan to unleash those things from Evan Mobley, I think that is a really important thing to take away from today. That Evan Mobley is going to be asked, to me, it sounds like he's going to be asked to do more on the offensive end of the floor. And if the Cavs are going to get to where they want to go, Evan Mobley needs to do more on the offensive end of the floor. The other thing that he did mention, and this was towards the end of that answer, he talked about expanding Evan Mobley's role as a three-point shooter, where Evan, last year, he had a solid season shooting threes. It was right around 37%. You guys have heard me talk about this a number of times, but the volume wasn't all that high. He was less than 2 threes per game. Now, I followed up and I asked him, okay, well, Kenny, you have been in places like Brooklyn, where Brook Lopez went from being a guy that didn't shoot threes at all to a high-volume three-point shooter. You were in Atlanta, where Al Horford wasn't someone who shot three-pointers, turned into probably a medium-volume three-point shooter. I think it would be fair to characterize Horford as, at least at that point in his career. Evan Mobley's not going to become Brook Lopez. He's not going to be a guy that right now Brook Lopez shoots like 8 or 9 3-pointers a game. That's not who Evan Mobley is going to be. But I walked out of Cleveland Clinic Courts this afternoon after the press conference was over. And my thinking was Evan Mobley is going to shoot 4 3-pointers a game. That is where I think this is. I think he's going to go from being a low volume 3-point shooter to a mid volume 3-point shooter. We will see what that looks like. We'll see. And to be fair, this might be one of those things that you need to see to believe. That might be something that you just need to see to believe what this looks like, because we've heard finally does this time. But I do think I feel more confident now than ever that, okay, there is room to go here, that this 3-pointer can come along for Evan Mobley. The Cavs have a belief in it, that range can be, I don't even want to say expanded, but implemented. Because I think Evan Mobley's got the range. I just don't think that he's done it enough. So that was my biggest takeaway from today's press conference. My next most important takeaway is that the Cavs have real goals here. One of the other things I talked about was wanting to know what is a successful season. And I don't think the question, and Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com was the one who asked this, and I don't think the question was worded in a way that's like, is it championship or bust? But he essentially asked, when do you shift your focus to winning championships with this group, with this organization? And I do want to, I don't want to make a habit of reading things, but I think it's very important to read verbatim what Koby Altman said. He said, I would say for us, the goal is always championship, especially with this group. We want to win rounds in the playoff. That's plural, rounds, so more than one, in the playoffs, and that's really difficult to do, to finish in the final 8. That was huge for us last year. Big step for us when you look at the age of our group and our success, but the next step of winning rounds of the playoffs is really difficult. Putting yourself in that position, being healthy, having really successful regular seasons, which we believe is very important, is a part. We brought in Kenny to help us take that next step in a really competitive East and in a tough league. I think we're right there with some of the best teams in the league, certainly in the East. That to me, while he didn't explicitly say it, that to me says that the goal for the organization this year is to get to the conference finals. It's not to win a round of the playoffs and finish with a 5-round loss in the second round. To me, this goal says that they need to get to the conference finals for this to be a successful season. I love that is the direction it looks like. I think that this team is talented enough to where that should be the goal. That should be the standard. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a fan of the Knicks, who have not been to a conference finals, the Sixers, who have not been to a conference finals, the Bucks, who have not won a playoff series in, I believe, 3 years at this point, or the Cavs, I think you're all in that same group. So if you're a fan of one of those other teams, would you be happy with the season if that team, say you're a fan of the Sixers, if the Sixers don't get to the conference finals, you're not going to be happy this year. So if you're a Cavs fan, why would you feel any different? You should have those same standards, because I think you're in the same group as those teams. You're not in the group with Boston, where if the Celtics only make the conference finals this year and you're a Celtics fan, I think it's totally fair to be mad. But if you're a Cavs fan, I think making the conference finals should be the goal. I think it's the goal of all those other organizations, and I think the Cavs are in that same tier in the Eastern Conference. And I don't think that's an unfair thing. So that was something that I walked away with. Okay, the Cavs have real standards here. The Cavs are at a place now where they have expectations. They have expectations that they're going to go on a deep playoff run. Not just, we won a series, we made it to the second round, but we ran into a better team. I don't think that's going to be viewed, and I don't think it should be viewed as a successful season when things come to an end. If the Cavs are not playing in the conference finals, I don't think that the Cavs are going to view this year as a success. And I think that would be the correct way to look at things. If you're this organization, with everything that has been invested in the team, with everything that they have done financially, trading for Donovan Mitchell, winning 99 games, which was referenced a couple of times by Koby Altman during this press conference over the last couple of years, you've done all that. It's time to expect more. It's time to expect more postseason success. So that was certainly something that I took away that I thought was very important. I've got 2 more things that I took away from this press conference. I will tell you what they are next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. I know you know that by now because I keep telling you about how FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, like maybe you did last night during that Dallas-New York game, that Dallas found a way to win. I wasn't overly impressed with either of those two teams, but maybe you got a hunch during the middle of it. You pulled up your FanDuel app. You're able to see, hey, here are the latest stats, the live play-by-play of the game. I want to make a live bet because I think that New York might cover this 5.5-point spread. Well, the FanDuel app is obviously the place to go. And while you're on FanDuel now, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Maybe that first $5 bet going to be in Cleveland's football game on Sunday. Maybe you don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to win in Vegas against the Raiders this Sunday. Could be the case. Could be the case. They are currently 1.5-point underdogs, I believe, in Vegas. They opened up this as 1.5-point road favorites. Now they're underdogs. I don't feel great about this one for the Browns. I don't. But if you do, maybe you put $5 on them on FanDuel and you get $200 in bonus bets back guaranteed. FanDuel is the place to do that. It is America's #1 sports book for a reason. So just head on over to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. And you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Of course, the show might be your second listen today, with the regular episode of Locked On Cavs being your first listen. So for your third listen today, head on over to Locked On NBA. Check out all the national news and analysis from a panel of national experts as well as local experts talking you through the start of the NBA season. There have been media days this week. Media day for the NBA at large will be Monday. Of course, Cavs players will be available then. So you want to be covered with the Locked On NBA show. Check that out anywhere you get your podcast or on YouTube. Just search Locked On NBA. So one of the other things that new Cavs head coach Kenny Atkinson said on Friday at his media availability was that he expects, he talked about the depth that this team has, which I do think they have a lot of guys that are capable of being, NBA rotation players. I don't think that this team, I don't think has bad basketball players on it. And of course, bad is relative. Like there are bad basketball players like me, and there are bad NBA players. And there's such a gigantic difference. But the Cavs, I don't think have bad NBA players on the team right now. And Kenny talked about how he's excited to be able to utilize this depth, how he trusts this depth. He mentioned too, and one of the questions that I had that I wasn't going to ask this today, and Kenny brought it up organically. I thought this would have been a question, I was going to save until later on in training camp once he got a little bit of a better feel. But he said that right away he plans on playing 10 guys. And he might even plan on playing 11 guys right away. When JB Bickerstaff was the head coach of the Cavs, his rotation, like his ideal rotation number was 9 guys. That answer there told me, okay, things are going to be different. You're going to see fewer minutes from starters. Donovan Mitchell's not going to be playing 36 minutes a night. Donovan Mitchell's going to be down in his minutes a little bit, and it's going to be for the best. You're going to see this team play a lot of guys. You're going to see them utilize the depth, which I do think is, while they might not have the top-end talent, particularly on the wing, we know they have top-end talent elsewhere. I do think they have a lot of depth. And someone like Ty Jerome, who Koby Altman brought up and called, he might be our MVP of September. And of course, September doesn't matter in the NBA, but it's good. Ty Jerome is having a good offseason and could be someone that can contribute. Because I've not seen Ty Jerome do anything of note in a Cavs uniform, I've not factored Ty Jerome into the plans. But if Ty Jerome earns a spot in the rotation and can be somebody that can give them 12 minutes a night, that is a huge boost for this team. That would be terrific for the Cavaliers. So I do think that having an expanded rotation is going to pay dividends early in the season. I also think it's going to pay dividends later on in the season, because I think that is something that could lead to the Cavs being a little bit healthier later in the season. And that leads me to my final thing that I wanted to talk about today. But I do believe that I got the sense, I should say. I got the sense, and this is not to say the Cavs have not embraced analytics in the past, but I think they're going to lean further into analytics now than they have in the last couple of years. And I think Kenny Atkinson is a big reason why. I think he is somebody that studies the game on a more analytical sense than JB Bickerstaff did. So I do think that, and Koby Altman mentioned, that the sports science staff is growing. That's part of the reason why the Cavs are planning on opening a new practice facility in downtown Cleveland that is in partnership with the Cleveland Clinic, just like their one in Independence is right now. I think that the analytics are growing. I think they're going to embrace sports science. I think they're going to embrace these things. And I think that the Cavs want to be really on the forefront of a lot of this stuff as far as the NBA goes. I got that sense today. That wasn't something that said, it wasn't as if Koby Altman or Kenny Atkinson said, hey, we're going to be more analytically advanced. But by reading in between the lines on a lot of their answers, that was something that I took away and said, okay, I think this team is going to be a team that leans into how things are done analytically. And I think that's a good thing. I think that will be a good thing for this Cavs team ultimately. It might take a little bit of an adjustment. And it's the thing, Rome wasn't built in a day. You cannot transform your organization as far as analytics go with the snap of the fingers. But I think that we're going to see the Cavs lean a little bit more into it this year. I think that's going to be the thing. So Monday will be the Cavs media day for the players. I'm not sure which players will be available. I anticipate all the star players on the team being available, and the majority of the roster, I do believe, will. So I will have an episode Monday morning talking about that. I'm planning on doing another episode just like this one Monday afternoon, and then I'm off to Florida. I will be in Florida covering training camp at IMG Academy. I hope everyone down there is doing okay with the hurricane that just rolled through the area. Hopefully the Bradenton, Sarasota area is doing well also, but I am very excited to get down there. I'm very excited to have basketball back. This is awesome. It was great to be inside Cleveland Clinic courts again today, back at the facility, and off we go. Basketball season is here. So that means you need to make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Also, make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button, click the notification bell, and make sure you're subscribed. I'll talk to you